Whilst it may not be as prestigious as headlining WrestleMania, closing out SummerSlam is still a pretty big deal. Equally, being chosen to kick off the biggest party of the summer shows that the company has faith in a performer to get the crowd in the right mood for the rest of the night. Some grapplers have had the honour of doing both, 18 in fact. And today we are going through every single one of them. But before we get started, pre-show matches don't count as openers. I know it, you know it, so stop mucking about and trying to make my job more difficult, alright? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is every wrestler to both open and close a SummerSlam. Join us! Ted DiBiase. The $1 Million Man was part of the very first SummerSlam main event back in 1988. He and Andre the Giant lost to Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage after Miss Elizabeth distracted them by whipping her skirt off. I mean, that'll do it, won't it? Fast forward 4 years and Ted was part of a different tag team alongside Erwin R. Shyster. In the opening contest of SummerSlam 92, Money Inc. got beaten by the Legion of Doom. The $1 Million Man might not have won either of these matches, but he did make history by becoming the first person to perform in both a SummerSlam opener and closer. Now that's priceless. Bret Hart. At the second ever SummerSlam in 1989, Bret Hart and brother-in-law Jim Neidhart opened proceedings against the Brainbusters. The Pink and Black attack came up short against Arn and Tully after some good old heel trickery from Bobby the Brain Heenan. Hey, if you're gonna cheat, you may as well cheat with the best of them. Hart would then go on to main event 3 SummerSlams across his storied career. He won the world title off The Undertaker in 1997 and was part of Team WWE vs Team Nexus in 2010. Yep, I'd almost forgotten he was in that match too. As for his first main event though, well, that was against the British Bulldog. Under the blazing British sun, or more likely the overcast British afternoon, the British Bulldog defeated Bret Hart to win the Intercontinental Championship in the final match of SummerSlam 92. Davey Boy Smith capturing the gold in front of his home country crowd remains one of the greatest closing images in WWE history and secured both participants their place on this list. Bulldog had actually been part of the very first SummerSlam opener, teaming with the Dynamite Kid to take on the Fabulous Rougeaus. How did this inaugural match on a brand new pay-per-view tradition end? In a time limit draw. Way to hook people in, guys. Shawn Michaels. Like his fierce rival Bret Hart, the Heartbreak Kid also has 3 SummerSlam main events to his name. In reverse order, they are his all-time classic with Hulk Hogan from 2005, classic for all the wrong reasons, his appearance in the second ever Elimination Chamber match in 2003, and his WWE title match against Vader from 1996. You know, the match where Michaels threw a giant hissy fit and essentially ruined the Mastodon's WWE career. As for his one and only opener, that took place in 1990 when he was part of the Rockers. Michaels and Jannetty faced Paul Roma and Hercules, who defeated them in 6 minutes. Mankind and Triple H. We are lumping these 2 Hall of Famers together because they both earned their place on this countdown at the exact same time. Hey, the sign of a great wrestling rivalry is when 2 characters' feud spreads across multiple positions on the card. Mankind and Triple H first met at SummerSlam when they were both mid-carders, clashing in the opening steel cage contest of the 1997 event. Then, 2 years later, Mick and Trips were once again in the same bout when they were both challenging Stone Cold Steve Austin for his WWE Championship. Despite Hunter's reputation for burying people, it was actually Foley who came out on top in both of these matches. However, when you consider that Hunter would main event 4 SummerSlams versus Mick's 1, I think we all know who the real winner was. Kurt Angle. He may be one of the greatest in-ring technicians of all time, who was always in the mix at the top of the card during his WWE run, but Kurt Angle somehow only closed out a single SummerSlam in his career. This was in 2000, where he and Triple H, there he is again, challenged The Rock for the WWE title. This was part of that awesome love triangle involving Stephanie McMahon, the one that got cut short because Trips apparently didn't find it believable that Steph would leave him for Kurt. Nice non-psychotic behavior there, mate. 2 years later, Angle fought Rey Mysterio in the Masked Man's pay-per-view debut. Considered to be one of the best SummerSlam openers of all time, Angle tapped out the Luchador after a whirlwind bout. Nobody's egos were damaged in the making of that match. Chris Benoit. In a move they surely deeply regret now, WWE had Randy Orton defeat Chris Benoit at SummerSlam 2004 to become the youngest world champion in company history. A nice moment at the time, but one that they just can't show any proper footage of these days. The year after losing to the Viper in the main event, Benoit was first out to challenge Orlando Jordan for the United States Championship. In another memorable match, the challenger defeated the champion in just 25 seconds to bring young Mr. Jordan's reign to a crushing end. Edge. SummerSlam 2001 was a strange beast. It was right in the middle of the invasion angle, meaning that almost every single match was WWF versus the Alliance in some way. Edge scored first blood for the McMahon Empire when he defeated Lance Storm for the Intercontinental Championship in the night's first match. 5 years later, Edge was the defending champ against John Cena in both men's first SummerSlam closer. Against all odds, the Rated R superstar actually held on to his world championship against the C Nation leader, though he dropped it a month later in a TLC match at Unforgiven. The Hall of Famer added another SummerSlam main event to his impressive resume in 2008 when he clashed with The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell and then played his part in battling the Nexus in 2010. Jeff Hardy. Edge's brother in ladders, Jeff Hardy, only took 1 year to get from curtain raiser to headline attraction at the biggest party of the summer. In 2008, Brother Nero battled MVP to kick off the broadcast proper. This was hardly the most important match storyline-wise, but both men were good enough workers to get a decent 10 minutes out of each other. Then, in 2009, Hardy had a much better feud behind him when he defended his World Heavyweight Championship against CM Punk in a TLC match. In this intense blow-off match, Jeff damn near killed himself with a gigantic swanton bomb through the announce table and somehow still came up short against the straight-edge superstar, John Morrison and RTruth. Much like Triple H and Mankind, John Morrison and RTruth got onto this list with the exact same matches. And that is the only time you will ever hear those two pairs compared to each other. Alongside Cena, Edge, Jericho, Daniel Bryan and Bret Hart, Morrison and Truth were part of Team WWE's battle against the Nexus in 2010. How did they do? Well, they were the first two men out of their team, so 1 year later, the lads were on opposite sides of the opening six-man tag. Morrison, Kofi Kingston and Rey Mysterio eventually wound up as winners over the team of Truth, The Miz and Alberto Del Rio. Hey, you want another crazy fact? Morrison and Truth also opened a WrestleMania as part of a tag team title match against Show Miz. What a time to be alive. Alberto Del Rio. We just mentioned that famously nice man Alberto Del Rio was part of SummerSlam 2011's opening contest, but do you remember that he also closed out that very same show? The scheduled main event of the night was John Cena taking on CM Punk to crown an undisputed WWE champion. This was after Punk won the belt at Money in the Bank, left WWE for about half an hour, and then came back. After Punk pinned Cena in dubious circumstances, Kevin Bloody Nash of all people showed up to powerbomb the new champ. This allowed Del Rio to cash in Money in the Bank, technically giving the main event spot to him versus Punk. Chris Jericho. Yet another member of Team WWE in that Nexus match, Chris Jericho had actually closed out SummerSlam 7 years before the Ravenous Rookies ever showed up. At SummerSlam 2003, Y2J was one of 6 men who entered the Elimination Chamber match for Triple H's World Heavyweight title. Jericho's major contribution to this match was getting speared through a pod wall by Goldberg in a move that should have been a precursor to Bill winning the whole thing. Spoiler, he didn't. Lionheart is also a 2-time SummerSlam opener, once against Dolph Ziggler in 2012, and the other alongside Kevin Owens in a match against Enzo Amore and Big Cass. In case you were wondering, Enzo Amore never main evented SummerSlam. Shocker, I know. Randy Orton. The SummerSlam 2003 Chamber match also gave a first main event to little baby Randy Orton. Look at his chubby little cheeks. Who's a cute little legend killer? Yes, you are. We've already discussed how Orton closed out 2004 by winning the big gold belt, and he would go on to main event against John Cena in 2007 and against Brock Lesnar in 2016. We're all still recovering from watching Brock crack Randy's head open like a boiled egg. In a match nobody remembers, the Apex Predator fought Sheamus to kick off the 2015 edition of the show. In a result that also nobody remembers, the Celtic Warrior actually won. Go on, my son. Randy would eventually get his SummerSlam opener victory in 2021 when he and Riddle beat AJ Styles and Omos to win the Raw tag straps. John Cena. From his 2006 battle with Edge to his 2021 big money match against Roman Reigns, John Cena has main evented SummerSlam 5 different times. It would have actually been 7 had 2 pesky Money in the Bank cash-ins not happened. Damn that wretched briefcase. Amazingly, Big Match John has only been victorious in 1 of his SummerSlam show closers, when he single-handedly ruined the Nexus back in 2010. Cena has fared much better in SummerSlam openers, in which he is undefeated. Granted, he's only had 1 of them, but still, a perfect record. This was against Baron Corbin in 2016, off the back of Cena costing the Lone Wolf his own cash-in on SmackDown. To make matters worse, Cena won. They really had it in for Corbin at this time, didn't they? Seth Rollins. The one and only Shield member on this list, Mr. Freakin' Rollins, also only took a year to go from first to last on the SummerSlam card. He took on Dolph Ziggler to open up 2018's proceedings. This match was for the Intercontinental Championship, and was one of the better matches these two have had, mainly because there wasn't a giant clock present to distract the fans. In 2019, Rollins recaptured his Universal Championship in one of Brock Lesnar's 9 different SummerSlam main events. Seth's victory makes him the only man in history to take a world title off the beast at both SummerSlam and WrestleMania. Bray Wyatt. For our final entry, we are looking at a man who made his main roster debut in the first match of SummerSlam 2013. Bray Wyatt was called up from NXT and immediately thrust into a feud with a pre-authority, pre-mayoral Kane. The two met in a Ring of Fire match at the biggest party of the summer, a match so poor that we're going to move quickly on from it. After an up and down few years, to say the least, Bray finally got his SummerSlam main event when he challenged Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship in 2020. In front of, let me check, 0 fans, Wyatt's Fiend persona beat his former family member to begin his second run with the prize. A run that would last not very long at all before a newly healed Roman Reigns beat him to start his epic time at the top. Poor Bray.